Ballerina. This will be a spoiler review. I have a review up on my blog, soundedbettermyhead.com. That's spoiler free, so if you want to check that out first or instead. I ended up giving this a 2.5 out of 5. It was just I found myself bored a lot. Unfortunately, I think the plot, it's just a basic revenge plot. And yeah, you could say the first John Wick was just basically a revenge plot, but it had enough little nuances to it to make it stand out, where this one is just a little bit more generic. I think because you really don't see John Wick and his wife, I think that relationship has a little bit more oomph. You could kind of like imply more how deep their love was, where at the start of Ballerina, you see her and her father, and you get a little interaction from them, but it's just not enough to care that much about like either character. That's and there are points where the plot looks like it could take some interesting turns, and it doesn't. Especially later on in the film, she looks like she's going to team up with Norman Reedus' character. I'm like, okay, this could be interesting. These two team up for a little bit. They're trying to protect this little girl, and then he's taken out. So I'm like, all right, so the plot's going to be she's trying to protect this girl. That makes sense because her character is supposed to be more of a protector than an assassin. And then that immediately stops, and it's just back to the revenge plot again. And, she does have to rescue the little girl ultimately, but she really that's not why she's there. It's just a happenstance. Like, oh, by the way, I just killed this guy. Now this little girl's free to go back to her dad. Like, it's not even really part of the plot. She has no connection to this kid. She doesn't, I don't want to say doesn't care what happened, but it's not part of her story whatsoever. The film is helped by being part of the John Wick universe and got that lore in there, so that makes it a little bit more interesting. And we do got characters that we recognize from those other movies. And again, those points where it starts to get kind of interesting and just execution is not there or just gets dropped. I like the idea that all these assassins in the John Wick universe are supposed to play by these rules, and those is cult or this other tribe that doesn't play by the rules. They're not part of this organization, and there's like uneasy truce between the two groups. And now you got this group that doesn't really give a shit, and they're willing to like break any of the rules that all the other characters have to abide by. So I thought that could be interesting. And there's a couple sequences where it is, but it just doesn't go far enough, or doesn't feel as widespread enough, I guess. I don't know. There's just moments where like, okay, this is a cool concept, but it just doesn't click. I think it kind of hurts too that there was a scene in the Continental in Prague where assassins come after Norman Reedus' character. They're basically saying, screw the rules. The money's big enough. We don't care. I don't know if they were all meant to be part of the Assassins Guild or this cult, or some of them were regular assassins. Especially because they were getting bounties through the same text message that everyone else was. I wouldn't think these guys would be part of that text message chain. So it seemed like they were normal assassins first. So for the guys that are supposed to play by the rules, they say screw the rules, it makes it less impactful that the group that says screw the rules all the time is saying screw the rules. If that makes any kind of sense whatsoever. And I think it did. The acting is fine for what the movie needs. I didn't think the children actors were particularly that good. I thought Ana de Armas was fantastic. She had a role in one of the James Bond movies where she kicked all kinds of ass and looked fantastic doing it. And I think everyone's said as soon as they announced this movie, it was like, yeah, that's perfect for her. She does basically a lot of the same stuff that John Wick has to do, except the first scene she has to do it in a dress and heels, getting knocked all over the place. And she seems to be doing most of her own stunt work to a degree. Not everything, but this, stuff she's not going to get killed trying to do. Same for Keanu Reeves in John Wick. The action itself, a lot of it was kind of bland. I think one thing that always stood out with the John Wick movies is the gunplay. They've called it gun fu, and we don't get that much of that. Like, there's a little bit early on, but I think it's knocked down a peg because it's rubber bullets, and she does a little bit here and there later, but it's mostly her using her fist and like improvised weapons, which is fine. But it's like they make a point to tell you that she's a girl and she's smaller than most of her opponents and weaker than most of her opponents. It's like, well, that's a perfect place for a gun, is to, make up for that. I think she could have had some cool moves with the gun, but for whatever reason they didn't go that route. And they said, you can't always have the gun those times. You got to improvise. That's cool, but I thought that was kind of lacking. So the rest of the fights were just so. Until late in the film, things start picking up. We get some cool stuff with like ice skates and then some grenades, which borderline on, okay, that's not going to work. And also, okay, that was still pretty cool. I thought the flamethrower stuff was pretty awesome to start with. It went on maybe a little longer than it needed to, but it was still pretty cool. As far as the kind of elephant in the room with John Wick, he's all over the posters. He's all over the trailers. I think initially I thought it was just going to be a small cameo, which is what you get early in the film. It's like taking place as part of John Wick 3. It's more or less a scene from John Wick 3. He does show up at the end. He briefly fights Eve and then he gives her time to like finish what she came there to do, and then he also gets a little bit involved. So I almost felt it was like almost a little bit of a gratuitous action sequence with John Wick. I think on one end it's like you didn't need it, it's kind of stealing her thunder. On the other end, I think there are probably people like, well, John Wick's in and he didn't do nothing. So I guess I kind of see that they put themselves in like a rock and a hard place there. But it's like when he's like just taking people out like it's nothing, and she's struggling, it makes your lead character look like a little bit weaker by comparison. Granted, she's like more or less a rookie assassin, and he's like a super pro. I did enjoy the training sequence with her. Seeing her come in and trying to like push herself to be like the best. So that was a good sequence early on. I just thought the middle was like a little because I was like her training to be assassin was interesting and kind of seeing how this organization works. And then it's like we go back to the whole cult thing, and they just kind of didn't care enough about that story plot going forward. And every time they start to add something that seemed like it was going to make it more interesting, it just didn't stick. I did like that Lance Reddick was back, which confused me because I knew that he died, but I thought John Wick was his final film. So at first I was like, did they get a look-alike? Because I know they wouldn't do a CGI replacement. It's like, did they get a sound-alike? Because this guy looks exactly like him. And I come to find out he did actually film scenes for Ballerina before he died. So that was confusing me, but it was nice to see him back. But a little bit sad because the guy, passed away in real life. And then the film itself too, and then it ends kind of like, meh, like it just kind of ends. She kills the bad guy and then goes on with her life, I guess. But now she's got a bounty, so now she's on the runs, which is kind of how John Wick 2 ended to a degree. I mean, she wasn't kicked out of the assassin's organization, but she wasn't on good terms necessarily with with the Russian family. But whatever. I wasn't too blown away with this. I thought it was a little boring until late when the action picked up. But I did like the character. I would like to see her do more. I'd be interested to see where they go from here. Also, I was going to mention when they go to the town full of assassins, some of it was that, and some of the other stuff in the film was kind of silly intentionally, like a little tongue in cheek. But I've seen the town full of assassin thing before, and it's just, I don't know. I don't think they did anything that much better here than other people. I think kind of recently Doom Patrol, I think, did an episode where they go to this town and everybody's got a gun, I think, and they start shooting at the team. I think there was an episode of, not even an episode, the movie Hot Fuzz. They go to a spoiler for Hot Fuzz. There's the town that the cops in, turns out they're all gun-wielding maniacs. And it's like the most innocent people are whipping out guns and shooting at them. So it's kind of like I've seen that before when I got to it in Ballerina. And it wasn't enough of a twist on it to make me say, wow, this is, different. So I don't know. I think it's about it. But other than that, I have the spoiler-free version of this review. I have reviews for other movies, TV shows, a couple video games. I have a comic strip that I do. You can find all that at soundofbettermyhead.com. So if you want to check any of that out, that's awesome. Other than that, thanks for watching.